What's up, YouTube? It's your boy APFC. Today, we are going to discuss some comments that Bernd Leno made about Unai Emery. This actually particularly interests me because there hasn't been many players that have spoken about Unai Emery since he was sacked in December. And obviously, we're seeing a lot of players praise Arteta, and probably rightly so for the impact that he's made, although the results haven't necessarily improved that much. No one's really come out and said anything about Emery, and for what Leno says in the article confirms a lot of things that Arsenal fans were thinking, particularly towards the end of the Emery reign. I'll go through the article and will then go through exactly what he's sort of trying to say between the lines. So he initially starts talking about Arteta and how Arteta has brought unity to the squad and whatnot, and I'll just go through the article. So he initially says he has in this short time made a big impact. You can see the intensity we play, also the structure in the team, and the mentality away from the pitch. Before, I don't want to say it was a mess. It was a little bit confusing. Everyone was doing different things. We were not a team, not in the dressing room, not on the pitch, and you could see this. We could see this, correct. I think with Mikel, it's changed completely. Now, he initially says, let me bring it up. Before, I don't want to say it was a mess, which to me is him saying in a nice way that it was a mess. So, we all knew this as Arsenal fans. We could see the way that we were structured, particularly in the midfield when getting counter-attacked, that midfielders particularly didn't know their roles. We had someone like Lucas Torreira who ended up playing three different roles in Arsenal this season. He played as a box-to-box for a bit. He played as an attacking midfielder, which was a decision that completely baffled a lot of Arsenal fans. Excuse me. And he ultimately played in his best position, although Emery did not play him there much, as a defensive midfielder. We saw at the back we were very shaky. Centre-backs didn't know where to position themselves. And it was initially an era of Arsenal that was looking very positive. Obviously, Arsenal went on a 22-game unbeaten run early last season. Not last season. Yeah, it was early last season. And I think for about 70 to 80% of our season, Arsenal were looking pretty good. Yes, we slipped after that 22-game unbeaten run slowly, but at that point, we were still in a prime position to get our ultimate goal, which was back in the Champions League through the top four. At some point, Emery lost his marbles and decided that he wanted the Europa League over anything else, and this is what ultimately cost us Champions League. And I remember the game against Palace at home last season where he played players like Carl Jenkinson and Mohamed El Neni and treated the game with real disrespect, and ultimately we lost. And for me, that was a domino effect that sort of led on till the rest of the season. You know, it didn't help that we lost Aaron Ramsey around that time as well because he was a key player and we weren't getting that threat from the midfield. But just a decision at that time to prioritise Europa League, probably for his own maybe ego in respects to being a Europa League master. We were still in the box seat for the top four, and we had the best run of games coming into the end of the season, and teams around us were slipping and dropping like flies. But we didn't treat the Premier League with enough respect, which in my opinion is a sackable offence in itself. I mean, if you're going for the Champions League and the Premier League's wrapped up, then maybe that's the only situation. But the Premier League is every team's bread and butter that are playing in England, and it didn't sit well with me with the way that he sort of finished the season. The start of the season looked relatively positive. For me, you know, that Newcastle game was probably the best that we played all season under Emery. And why I say that is because in some of the Europa League games, we're not playing against a strong opposition, but the way that we looked in that game, we were looking good off the counter. To me, it looked like Emery was trying to hold the right and the left backs a little bit further back, which was a problem last season when our wing backs were getting caught too high. And for me, it looked like we had turned a corner and we were looking a lot more structured and we were playing a more counter-attacking style of football. How I was wrong, because things started to snowball completely after that. And for me, the result that particularly got me thinking that Emery has got to go was the Crystal Palace result. One of the poorest performances I've seen over the last 2 to 3 years. And yes, we did get that equaliser right at the end, but at the end of the day, they were rubbish. And just some of the goals I remember, and just the way that they would just run through us, not Crystal Palace in particular, but other teams, that they would just run straight through our midfield. We were giving teams around 30 to 40 metres of space. The game particularly that resonated with me was the Arsenal-Southampton game. And that for me was really where, obviously I said Palace was when I started to think about Emery being sacked, but that was the game that I thought he must go. The way that Southampton ran through us for the second goal got me completely enraged, because we made them, with our lack of positional awareness and our lack of structure, look like a prime Barcelona back in the day. And I mean, when Leno says things like that, I don't want to say it was a mess, but it was a little bit confusing. You think of those sort of results and performances, and then you think, exactly, it was confusing, and I don't think players particularly knew their roles. And we could see that, and ultimately I wanted it to work for Unai Emery because I thought there was a lot of good elements, but I think what really let him down was his lack of communication, and essentially as to not getting tactics right at the right time. It looked like initially when he was making subs at half time it was all working well, but it's the way he disrespected the Premier League towards the end of the season before really started to make me think that, have we got another sort of disaster on our hands? And we've sort of been rebuilding from that ever since. Obviously some of it was the end of the Wenger, but Emery did leave a little bit of a mess as well. And Leno addresses that, and he pretty much says that we were not a team. Those comments really stuck with me, because I was always wondering that in this period, was there sort of unrest in the squad? There was speculation going on that players were unhappy with how Emery was treating Mesut Ozil. I personally think the way that Emery treated Ozil was correct, but what I think he did wrong was pretty much criticising Ozil, and then when his job was on the line, bringing him back in to try and get fan support. That ultimately was desperation in my eyes, and I think a lot of fans would agree with me on that and would say that they saw that desperation, moved by Emery as well. And yeah, I mean, everything just looked a bit of a mess. The one thing that I noticed with Arsenal in the Emery reign is that when we lost the ball and when we gave the ball away, you would see the players throw their arms up in the air at each other, and everyone was just criticizing each other. It was a real finger pointing sort of blame game mentality that we had, and we didn't seem to really have a team that was willing to get behind the cause. If you compare it with something like what David Luiz was saying, is that, I'll bring this up now because David Luiz was basically talking about how Arteta has pretty much galvanized the squad in some respects. He's got David Luiz properly believing, because, David Luiz was saying, I enjoyed it a lot. I came from clubs that would always fight for titles and would always fight to win, and Mikel knows that well. He says if it doesn't matter if it's first job as a coach or not, he knows football, he knows inside the pitch, he prepared himself outside the pitch and is ready for that. And a lot of players, including Leno as well, saying that he's galvanized the squad, and, at the end of the day, he has, although results haven't improved, but at the end of the day, he's done a lot in a small space of time, but he's still got a lot more to do. I am getting a bit sidetracked here because it's more about Bernd Leno's comments with Emery. I will be doing another analysis on a couple of interviews that I've seen regarding what players think about Mikel Arteta. But he has changed that sort of mentality, because instead of the arm-waving culture, everyone seems to be, behind the team now. Defensively, you can see that we've massively improved, and obviously Leno being a goalkeeper, when you play in that goalkeeper position, you tend to see the pitch better than everyone else, and he would probably see more than most that, particularly defensively, everything was a shambles. But look, the most important thing for now in the short term is that we can't expect too much with the change of management. I will go into this more tomorrow, but at the end of the day, as long as the mentality has changed, and it very much looks like it is from what the players are saying, although the players at times have been all talk in some aspects, but as long as we can sort of see that, at least for the short term, then fantastic, because then Arteta can now, once he knows the squad better and can bring in some of his own players, look to build the tactical side of things. He's already improved the defence. It's just more so with where the goals is going to come from, because it's been a bit low at the moment. But that is all I have time for today. Wanted to do a quick video on that, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. Do you think that Leno's comments regarding Emery is correct? For me, definitely, he's in his right to say that, and things were not looking very organised at all. Thank you for watching my video, guys. Stay tuned for more, and I look forward to talking to you soon.